Hey everybody, this is Perch. This mail has a lot of vulgarities in it, but you're used to that by now. But if you've had kids listening to the show, consider this your spoiler warning. Let's see what this mail says. It says, "Dear Perch, I'm curious if you think we will ever see a return to the sexy era of comics. What I mean by that is the kind of panels that did full-on fan service." Jim Lee drawings of Psylocke coming dripping out of the pool, turning on Cyclops, and having her nipples clearly poking through her costume. Or J. Scott Campbell on Gen 13, where girls were regularly floundering about in and out of bubble baths in their bra and panties saving America. These kinds of comics today are seen as unfortunate relics of the past, but I can't help but notice they sold really, really well. DC Comics is currently run by Jim Lee, and as much as people want to talk about what an amazing artist he was, one of the most memorable things about him is his cheesecake-style art. Same thing goes for Art Adams, who you regularly praise, J. Scott Campbell, who I mentioned earlier, Adam Hughes, and many, many artists who have made their names drawing very sexy tits or ass characters. Do you think comics will ever return to a place where we celebrate those artists rather than shunning them? It feels like sales would go up if they did. Curious to hear. Okay. Well, thanks for writing in. This is one of those things that nobody really likes to admit, but there is some truth to it, which is cheesecake style art, sexy, titillating art, girl. I mean, it's funny to me because on one hand, people get it, but they don't want to admit it. Every time you see DC or writers in DC or artists in DC talking about Nightwing, and particularly when they talk about Nightwing's ass and kind of the amazing, sexy aspect of Nightwing and how we need to draw him in, his skin tight clothing and everything else. Nightwing as a character has been propped up by DC as, he has adventures, but on a regular basis, they will promote his ass. And there's nothing, here's a crazy part. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's weird that comics seems on board with this. People like Gail Simone will talk about how amazing and sexy Nightwing's ass is, and we should have comics with just his ass. And then on the other hand, turn around and be like, yeah, we can't sexually objectify women. It's the same thing. I don't care about the history. I don't care about if you want to say that women were, in these positions more than men for the majority of comics. I mean, sure. Is that true? Yeah, it is. Does it matter? Sex sells. I mean, I can't be the first person to tell you this. It does. And so it's weird to me that on one hand you go, yeah, I mean, we should do a comic with, Nightwing and just have like oil dripping off of him and just really close up of his ass and everything else. The women, some men will love this. But on the other hand, like, Rogue's tits have been too big. We need to draw them smaller. And by the way, it's not me pulling an example out of the air. My friend who used to be in the X office, it's like, no, these were notes that would come back from editorial and they would say like, hey, you need to the White Queen, Emma Frost, you gotta just, she's like, let's bring those breasts down a little bit. Same thing with Kitty Pryde. A lot of these characters, let's desexualize. I think that was the exact phrase. It was written like, we need to desexualize these characters, by which they meant women, but we're going to continue to do it for the men. It's hypocritical for sure, but it's also like, it defies sales logic. I mean, I always wonder when the sales numbers come in and it's like, okay, we got this comic here. And in this comic, we got, some of the women superheroes here, and they're in in basic, peak human condition swimsuits with sweat and water dripping off of them. Um, and the numbers are up. And in the next issue, we have, none of that, and they're having lunch, and there's zero sexuality at all to this comic, and the sales are shit. Like, in fairness, I'm giving an unfair example because the retailers are running these comics, and so they're not even looking at what the sell through is to customers. But everybody knows at this point. Like, here's the crazy part. And next time you're in a Twitter argument with Tom Brevoort or somebody about sexuality in comics, I would say ask them this question: why is it that when you guys take images from your comics and you put them on T-shirts or posters or things, you will put, Olivia Capil doing, sexy images of Jean Grey or Storm on a T-shirt. You'll put, you'll go back into the archives and have, Jim Lee images of Storm, or, Rob Liefeld images of Domino, or Todd McFarlane pictures of Mary Jane. You'll keep printing that stuff. You put it on T-shirts, you put it on hats, you put it on posters. When you sell merchandise, when you license stuff, nobody goes to the Jeremy Whitley, Unstoppable Wasp. Did he do that, or is that Peter North? It doesn't matter. You don't take Nadia Pym in full gear with a sweater on and the rest of her science bros or girls, and you don't put that on a T-shirt, but you put, Psylocke in a bikini coming out of the pool. You put that on a T-shirt. Why is it, Marvel, that you do that? Why is it, DC, that you promote Nightwing's ass while simultaneously telling us that, Power Girl should have, breast reduction surgery? I mean, like, we can't have those tits showing through that superhero shirt. The funny part is, to the question in the email, at what point will comic companies realize this and put out some comics with, great fan service art? Well, I don't know, but the reality is they're doing it now. They're doing it with the stuff that counts. When you have to sell something on image alone, like a T-shirt, remember, there's no story. We got to put an issue out because the comic needs to continue. But for a T-shirt, it's sold purely on the visual. And amazingly, when you look at the shirts, they are still going back to the well with Art Adams, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, John Byrne. That's who they're going with. Again, Olivia Capil, J. Scott Campbell. The same thing with the covers, by the way. It's like, hey, for the covers, we got an Alex Ross cover here. We got a J. Scott Campbell cover there. We got an Art Adams cover. Why don't we have no name nobody who did this issue of Captain Marvel? How come there's no T-shirts with that art on it? It's weird, isn't it? Start looking, and I'm seriously, start looking at the art that goes out regularly from Marvel and DC to their licensed merchandise products, or even the stuff they do themselves around T-shirts and wearables and other stuff like that. You'll notice that all of the artists that they promote, all of the people they push, all of the messaging that they give around sexuality and we don't put women in uncomfortable positions and all that kind of stuff, none of that makes its way to the licensing products. With that stuff, it's like, hey, can we get J. Scott Campbell to do a picture of Black Cat, except her suit's coming off. It's like zipped down to her navel and her tits are falling out. We don't, no nipples, but we want to sell to children. But we definitely, like, enough of it's out that we realize she's like a, Triple H level of tit size. Next time you're in an argument with somebody on Twitter or Facebook or Blue Sky about that we don't do fan service or we don't just objectify women or any of that, go, yeah, it's weird though, but you keep putting like Frank Cho images of She-Hulk on T-shirts. Why do you do that exactly? When you have a choice to do something that you're selling completely based off the visual, suddenly you seem to lean into tits. I'm just saying, suddenly. It's weird how, that doesn't happen. How it's weird that you don't have, I sound like sound like the Snow White actress. It's weird, 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 weird. Anyway, it's weird that you don't have, this, B-list, artist who's doing whatever issue of Miss Marvel is out right now. None of them actually, but, it's weird that there's no images of that. But you are showing She-Hulk in a thong bikini. I mean, just why'd you put that out if you don't, if you're all about not objectifying women, it's kind of weird that that's what you're promoting when the product itself is solely based on the visual and nothing else. It's weird. It's weird. I would I would feel free to ask that. What it all means is, yeah, there's money to be made in sex. There always is, and fan service is a thing, and it's very popular, and the companies know this, and they're not putting it in comics because the reality is I don't I you know the sales are so far removed. You're selling to a retailer 3 months in advance, and then the customer buys it, but you never really see those sales numbers, so it's easy to be removed from it. But when it counts, when the money counts, suddenly boobs matter. And I'll end the video with that. Thanks for listening.